Welcome back to the postgame brought to you by ArchCitySports.com. From the major leagues to the minor leagues, Arch City Sports has you covered all across the St. Louis area. Give Arch City Sports a like on Facebook and be sure to follow at Arch City Sports on Twitter. My name is Nick Yale, and alongside me is Jeremy Karp. Today we'll be discussing a number of topics from Jaime Garcia's impact on the Cardinals, Matt Holliday's injury, and the Women's World Cup. But first, Jeremy, let's talk about the Cardinals game last night. They lose 11-3. What went wrong there for John Lackey on the mound?
Well, every team has games like this throughout their season. Even teams that are in the top of baseball's mountain right now, like the Cardinals. John Lackey is a veteran. He's an innings eater. But last night, he just did not have the stuff he needs to make a good performance happen. I mean, in the first inning and later in about the fifth inning, it was 10-1. By the time he was taken out of the game, it was 10-1. It's unbelievable. In 2 innings, the Rockies scored 5 runs apiece. And he came right out of the gate and struggled against the Rockies, who are in last place in their division. They're not the best offensive team, but they do have underrated players like Nick Hundley. And, of course, Troy Tulowitzki's still at the top of his game, even if people don't really realize it, because there's been so much drama regarding what's going to happen with him. But he's still at the top of his game, one of the best players in baseball. He powered their way to a quick 3-0 lead. And the amount of singles, just singles, it wasn't a bunch of all-around hits in general, but it was single after single that the Rockies hit. And they just kept pounding their way to storm ahead. The Cardinals, on offense, they weren't able to respond. David Hale, a great pitcher in his own, should have a really good career, but he's a young starter, so we'll see how that works out. But John Lackey, 36 years old, he just struggled badly, and the Cardinals as a whole struggled badly. Yeah. But Nick, you say they're bound to rebound tonight.
Yeah, tonight they will rebound, and with Michael Wacha on the hill, he's going to be 8-1. But more importantly, they're going to be without Matt Holliday, who injured his knee last night's game. What's the impact of Holliday's injury moving forward? Obviously, the Cardinals have a deep outfield. How do you think they handle this with yet another injury? Looking long-term, or do you think this will be a short-term injury?
Well, manager Mike Matheny has said earlier today that he does not expect the injury to Matt Holliday to be as severe as the injury to Matt Adams, which, of course, is a positive sign. Nevertheless, that still means Holliday's injured and could miss a significant amount of time. What amount of time, we don't know, and the updates will be given as soon as possible. But, like you said, the Cardinals' outfield is very deep. You have Randall Grichuk, you have Peter Borges, you have John Jay, you have Jason Hayward, but now you have Matt Holliday, but now he's out. The problem lies not only in who do you put out in the field, but who do you put in his spot in the lineup. And ever since Matt Carpenter started the season, third baseman Matt Carpenter, he was in the leadoff spot to start the season. And the Cardinals offense did not produce runs because there was not really a strong player after him to score him. He would get on base, but nobody would score him. They put him in the second spot, and the Cardinals just started producing more runs. But now you have Holliday in the third spot. You take him out, the struggle really means who do you put in there? You could move Mark Reynolds up, but at the same time, he's a really good player, but a really hit-and-miss player. It's usually either a home run or a strikeout. That's just how his career has been. You could move up Colton Wong, but then that affects the lower middle and lower part of the lineup. Because where Jason Hayward is, Hayward does need to step up at the plate. I'm not trying to be impatient like a lot of people have been, but Hayward does need to step up at that lower spot of the lineup. Otherwise, you do need a really balanced lineup in order to play all-around good baseball as far as offense is concerned. And the more players the Cardinals lose, the harder it will be. Now, that being said, I think a good player that they could put in there in that spot could be, and I think you might agree with me on this, Randall Grichuk. Grichuk, since coming off the DL, has had his fair share of power hits and his line drive hits. And in the outfield has proven to be very good. Now, Nick, another player I'm wondering your thoughts on, who I am a fan of, is Peter Borges, the one a lot of people know for being really fast on the base path.
Yeah, I think right now this is a speedy lineup for the Cardinals. But there is one player that you missed, and that's Johnny Peralta. Johnny Peralta, I think, is the guy that needs to be in that third position. For a lineup that I would do is you put Wong or Carpenter at the 1 and 2 respectively, move Johnny to 3, and then you mix and match with Grichuk, Yadier, and Hayward down there at the 4, 5, and 6. Obviously, Hayward, when he bats higher in the lineup, as we've seen, as Bernie and Gould wrote earlier this week, and when you see those guys higher up, when you see Hayward, higher up in the lineup, he tends to produce better than when he's down lower in the lineup. Yep. So if Hayward is in that 5 or 6 position there with Yachty, or 4 or 5 position, and then Grichuk down there at 6, that could be a potentially pretty effective lineup for the Cardinals. Because Grichuk right now, yeah, he's hitting great. He has power, he has speed, but can he do it on a more consistent basis? I think he can. If this turns out to be a long-term deal for Holliday, then yeah, I like Grichuk to be the left fielder. Borges and Jay can platoon out there in center with Hayward out in right. Hayward should be playing every day out there in right.
No one else is really suited for the right field.
No, and Hayward, you look at all these guys, you can say, oh, certain players can play certain positions, but I like Hayward in right field. I like Peter Borges over John Jay in center field, and then Grichuk out there in left. Works for me. Mark Reynolds, you asked about him a little bit. Before he was a 20 home run guy when the Cardinals brought him in. I don't see Reynolds as being that 20 home run guy anymore. He's changed his swing a little bit to where he's less powerful, and now he's just trying to make contact. So limiting those strikeouts, because before he was a high strikeout, high home run. It's kind of that high risk, high reward player. But now he's changed up his swing a little bit to be more of a contact player, which should be better for the Cardinals. So we'll just have to wait and see how they handle yet another injury as they move on, continue their season. They continue to win, but Holliday could be more of a bigger blow to this lineup because he's a leader in the clubhouse, and the Cardinals really don't have a vocal leader in the clubhouse. You can say Yadier is a leader, but he's not a really vocal leader.
He's more of a silent leader.
Yeah. Then they had Carlos Beltran a couple of years ago, Albert Pujols, obviously, when he was here. But they need a leader in the clubhouse to carry this team, especially with so many guys out, Adam Wainwright out, so many injuries, to keep this team, focused on track, especially in this long 162-game season. So we'll see where that lies. But moving from the field over to the pitching, let's talk a little bit about Jaime Garcia. Finally, he's healthy. We have a healthy Jaime. He's looked pretty good in his last start. What are your thoughts on Garcia?
Well, in a way, this is where I'm going to say out of every pitcher that they've used to fill that 5th spot ever since Adam Wainwright got hurt, Garcia has by far been the best. The problem is not so much can Garcia stay healthy, but can the Cardinals produce runs for him? He's 1-3 right now on the season, and the only game where they produced a run in general, they've been shut out. The offense has not scored a run, and those 3 losses Garcia has. It was just the one win he had where they produced more than 1 run. And that needs to change. I mean, obviously, he's not the first pitcher this season to not get run support, but at the same time, people all season have been saying, who's going to fill that 5th spot? We need somebody to fill that role with Wainwright gone. Well, they finally have a pitcher who can really stay healthy now, who's finally back in shape and good pitching condition, and he's not getting any help. And that's not going to work if the Cardinals really want to stay consistent with what's going on right now.
So are you blaming that more on the offense or on Jaime Garcia's pitching?
His pitching has actually been pretty good. I'm not blaming his health, obviously, on how the offense is doing. I'm saying the Cardinals do need to score more runs when Garcia's on the mound on a more consistent basis. Now, am I saying they need to score 15 runs every time he's on the mound? No. I'm saying it needs to balance out. Garcia needs to keep his consistent pitching just as much as the Cardinals need to keep their consistent hitting. He's not going to win every start the rest of the season, and the Cardinals aren't going to give him runs the rest of the season. But they do need to have a balance factor.
He needs to pitch deep into games, though. I mean, right now, my personal opinion about Jaime Garcia is get rid of him. I don't want Jaime Garcia on the team anymore. He's the 7th highest paid player on this team. He's owed $22.5 million over the next 2 years. My opinion on Jaime right now is he's been injured. He's injured year after year. We see him injured. He's out for the season. He doesn't pitch. Is he finally back now? We'll see. If he does able to stay healthy and finish out the season strong, I might change my mind. But he has a $500,000 buyout where that money could be used towards a different pitcher, a healthier pitcher. Because when you have a guy that gets injured, you look at Troy Tulowitzki, same thing in Colorado. A guy that's prone to injury is more likely prone to injury to become injured the next year. So,
once you're injured once, you're considered injury prone.
With Jaime, the way he throws the ball kind of torques the arm. That what happened with the shoulder injury to begin with could very well happen again. So, if he does produce, yeah, I'm for. I might change my mind for keeping him, but to say that the St. Louis Cardinals offense needs to produce more, I mean, you could say that about any offense. Any offense needs to produce more. And this Cardinals team does need to produce more. They've had some injuries that have hampered that. However, I think each pitcher should go out there. You look at a guy like Lance Lynn.
He hasn't gotten a lot of
run support, but has been dominant pitching and winning. You have to be able to win these 1-0, these 2-1 games, and credit the Cardinals bullpen because they've been able to do that and tough out these wins. And last night was just about the first instance where they gave up a kind of a blowout.
That was probably the worst. That was probably the worst game.
I think before that it was like 22 straight games, something like that, with 5 runs or have not given up more than 5 runs, which is incredible.
Oh yeah, especially with this, with everything. People thought as soon as Wainwright went down, the season was just going to go straight down the toilet. People thought, season's over. But look at how they've been resilient. They've persevered. And, yes, like I was saying earlier, they do need to produce. There needs to be a balance. But at the same time, like you said, pitchers need to go deeper into games, and Jaime is no exception. Now, do I think he should be getting $22 million? No. Do I think that next year they should keep him? Not really. If they can get someone better, obviously give him the shot. I think the race was on to see who would come up first, him or Marco Gonzalez.
Marco Gonzalez, I don't think is ready yet.
Exactly, and that's why they gave the nod to Garcia. Once Garcia got healthy, they were going to send him up, and Gonzalez is going to be a future star in this team. I see it, but for now, he's not healthy enough to where he can make a major impact on this Cardinals team.
And moving forward, then I don't like Garcia. We know that. A lot of it talk around pitching help to get these Cardinals through the season. Obviously, Adam Wainwright, their top guy, is out. So there's been a lot of trade rumors flying about a Cardinals needing to grab pitching help to help this team down the line, especially with questions around Carlos Martinez and Michael Wacha. We talked a little bit about last week about their innings, if they'll limit their innings. So in your mind, is there a pitcher out there that you want to see the Cardinals grabbing? What are your thoughts on the trade deadline and what kind of move the Cardinals make regarding pitching?
Well, it's hard because John Mozeliak's probably one of the smartest general managers, and not just in baseball, but in all sports. He's done a great job at focusing more on building rather than trading. And at the same time, you don't want to give up too much of what you've developed for something that could be a short-term answer. And some of the options people have brought up are Scott Kazmir of the Oakland Athletics, former Cardinal Kyle Loesch from the Milwaukee Brewers, and Mike Leake of the Cincinnati Reds, all of which are going to be free agents in 2016. Any of them could be a potential option. And if so, we could really see Garcia, getting your dream and getting the boot off that rotation. But it's really hard to tell if that is what the Cardinals are going to do. If they believe that Garcia can get them what they want out of him, and that's some consistency on the mound, then they're not going to just give up on him. They're not going to give up on him until Garcia gives them a reason to. And that's the key. It's that trust. It's that trust that they have in Garcia, or any pitcher in general, that's going to keep this rotation where it's at right now.
Yeah, and they're not going to. They're not going to go out and get a pitcher if there's no room in the rotation for them. They got Lackey, they have Lynn, you have Wacha, Martinez, and you have Garcia as of now. Obviously, things could change.
Right.
So to see them go out and get a pitcher, if they won't go out and get a pitcher if they don't need it. But in my opinion, I like Kyle Loesch, the Brewers, a guy that played for the Cardinals a few years ago and then left. Obviously, you said he'd be a free agent. He's 3-6 this year with a 6.59 ERA, so not a great start to the season, but he could be a pitcher that comes at maybe a cheaper price and And if they're talking about hitters too, I've heard a lot of talk about these so-called package deals to get a pitcher and get a first baseman. And Adam Lind of the Brewers could be one that the Brewers are wanting to trade. Obviously, the Brewers are probably going to be a seller at the deadline, already kind of out of the playoff hunt.
He has a good veteran presence in the lineup
he does.
in a way, too. I honestly kind of like Mark Reynolds does.
And sometimes you don't necessarily want to bring in a player that might ruin the
mess up the balance.
Yeah, mess up the chemistry. You never want to mess with the good thing. As the saying goes,
if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. Just took the words right out of my mouth. But if they are going to go out and get a hitter, get a pitcher, I like this option with Loesch and Lind from the Brewers. You can also look at Casimir and Zobrist from the Athletics, though Zobrist,
he's never hit over 300. So what do you say about that?
I mean, but he's not going to be an everyday player, is what I'm saying. Because right now, Reynolds is your first baseman. Adams is done for the season with that injury. But Zobrist would add some help off the bench. Zobrist is a guy that can play just about any position in the field: first base, second base, shortstop, third base, or the outfield. And he's a very versatile player, so he could help out there. So it kind of depends. We never know what Mozeliak's going to do at the deadline, and I think that's great. I don't think writers will fuel what they want. We'll speculate. Fans will speculate.
Everybody will get their 2 cents.
Everybody will get their 2 cents. And just an update on Holliday. He was placed on the 15-day DL. So the Cardinals are going to be without him for at least a couple more weeks. So we'll wait and see. Probably more tonight, I'm sure. Hear a little bit further about.
We'll see who they put in first and how it works out. And over the next few days, they'll see what happens.
It's been a really next man step up kind of.
That's been the theme of that and perseverance. And the themes of all season.
And they still win, which is great to see. So depending on who they put in there, will determine how they continue to play.
And that's what kind of worries me about when we talk about potential pitching help or potential package deals, because we're still winning. The Cardinals are still winning, despite Wainwright gone, with Adams gone, with Holliday gone for a little while. And if you bring someone in, what do you do when those players come back? I mean, you bring in Casimir and he pitches next year. What are you going to do with that rotation? And say somebody else comes up from the minors.
Well, this is going to be a rental player. This isn't going to be. He's got to be wanting. They're going to be gone at the end of this year, anyways.
But is it worth that investment? That's the issue.
It's the World Series. I mean, 100% it's worth that investment. if it's going to help you win the World Series, you do whatever you have to do to make that.
But nothing is guaranteed. That's the point I'm trying to make. I mean, if it did end up helping, it would.
So are you going to sit back and just sit back and not make a move because you think that the team is good how it is and hopefully they'll make it? Or would you rather get a guy as kind of an insurance policy to help you have a better shot at making? Not saying you are making, but if you want to get to the World Series, you kind of have to put your chips on the table. You got to put chips into play. And
this is what makes Mozeliak, though, such a unique general manager and what makes him at the top of what he does. He always leaves people speculating what move he's going to do next. And sometimes he surprises people. Other times we say, oh, that's a typical Mozeliak move. And, of course, that's in good reasoning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard-pressed to find a really bad Mozeliak move. So we'll see what happens as the trade deadline nears and as the season starts to progress. But bottom line is, despite the injuries, the Cardinals that was their 20th loss yesterday. They were the last team in baseball to not have 20 or more losses. And think about it, we're already on June 9th. I mean, that's amazing. Yep.
Jeremy Karp and Nick Yale talking on the post-game, brought to you by ArchieSports.com. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with soccer and a little wrestling. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the postgame, brought to you by ArchCitySports.com. Jeremy Karp along with myself, Nick Yale. Talked Cardinals baseball. Now we're going to get into a little soccer. Obviously, the Women's World Cup is in action. The United States took on Australia yesterday. Picked up a 3-1 victory. Megan Rapinoe started off the scoring with a goal in the 12th minute of the game. At half, it was tied 1-1, but then Christine Press scored to put USA ahead in the 61st minute, and then Rapinoe tallied another goal in the 78th minute to give the United States a 3-1 victory. They're going to play Friday versus Sweden at 7 p.m. You can check out that game on Fox Sports. Definitely a highly highly recommend checking out the World Cup. The Women's World Cup is always a great
Great
time.
treat to watch.
Yeah, they came to United States women's team came to Busch Stadium to in a friendly before the World Cup. I wasn't able to get out there to see, but it's always great to see soccer in St. Louis. Obviously, St. Louis FC is also having a good season.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what were your thoughts on that? They're coming off of a 1-1 draw against the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. They're currently ranked 7th in the Eastern Conference of the USL with 13 points, and the top 6 make the playoffs. So, Nick, I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on how St. Louis FC has been doing so far?
Well, they've moved the ball a lot better as of late. In that game against Minnesota in the U.S. Open Cup match at Worldwide Technology Park, the home victory that they won in PKs, they ran a 4-1-4-1, which really helped them move the ball a lot better, really stretch the wings. James Moose has been playing phenomenal in the central defense midfield ever since they've moved him to that new position. Patrick Duty, playing on the wing, has been playing excellent as well. And Jamil Hardaware, it's good to see him back and finally getting some good touches. Jeremy Lynch leads the team, scored the lone goal in that game against the Pittsburgh Riverhounds for St. Louis. He's got 3 goals on the season. But from the first game they played against Louisville FC in Louisville to now, they look much more cohesive. They have Brandon Barklage, they have Brian Gall, some of these guys that played in the MLS, add to their roster and get a lot of playing time, have really helped the team gel and help the team work as one unit and move the ball really well. They're going to be playing on Saturday against Harrisburg City Island at Marshall Wireless Stadium at Worldwide Technology Park. Kickoff is set for 7:30. Again, that's this Saturday, June 13th. And then they're going to be playing against Sporting KC in the U.S. Open Cup on June 16th, which is next Tuesday. That should be a fun game because St. Louis, obviously, with the MLS, St. Louis wanting the MLS team. If the MLS team ever does come here, you can see more of those matchups with the Chicago Fire and with Sporting KC. So the St. Louis FC, first Sporting Kansas City, U.S. Open, as the U.S. Open Cup continues on June 16th. That's going to be definitely a fun game. But if you haven't been out to the park yet, I urge you to go check out the St. Louis FC soccer team. You can get tickets at stlouisfc.com. Jeremy, have you been out to a game yet? Have you been able to make it out to the park?
I have not been able to go out and check a game, but I have seen what the park looks like, and obviously I know that Sporting KC. I'm sure it's a wonderful treat to get out there.
It is. The St. Louis are absolutely insane. They're so much fun to be around. That's the supporter group. One of our own writers, Matthew Bird, is a fellow Luligan and writes for our site that produces some great work. You can also catch him on the pregame and postgame show on 550 KTRS. So the Luligans, they love to have fun. St. Louis soccer is so great. I would love to see an MLS team eventually come here. But
it could very well happen.
It could very well happen if the stadium ever does get built. We'll see. That's a different story, though. But we're going to move on to another sport, you could say. I'm not a big fan of
sports entertainment.
Of wrestling, sports entertainment. There was a Ring of Honor match this past Friday night in Collinsville, Illinois, that you went to, Jeremy.
Yes, I did.
Tell me about
this. Is more in my field.
Enlighten me about WWE. I have some friends that are into this, but not my forte.
Well, this was not a WWE event. That's World Wrestling Entertainment for those that don't know.
This is something different.
This is a different wrestling promotion. Now, basically what happens is there's matches that are predetermined, and then wrestlers go out and perform the matches for the crowd. However, there's a lot of dangerous risks involved, and the injuries are real. Now, the show that was in Collinsville this past Friday night, myself and 3 friends of mine attended, was Ring of Honor. It's an independent promotion, but it's the 3rd most popular promotion, and it's actually working its way, and by 3rd most popular, I mean in North America, and it's working its way up to number 2 with another promotion, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, going really down business-wise. Now, I'm just going to say this is my 2nd straight year going to a Ring of Honor event, and it's once again, just like last year, it was an outstanding event and wonderful time. Wrestlers such as Jay Lethal, the ROH World Champion Jay Briscoe, Michael Elgin, and a former Rams player by the name of Moose. All were some of the performers there. And overall, the experience was just fantastic. Instead of being in a big arena filled with thousands and thousands of people. I mean, I've gone to 2 events at the Scott Trade Center where WWE has hosted pay-per-views. And while they're great times, you just don't get as big a feel as you do when you're at one of these independent shows and you're in about the 4th or 5th row, right next to the ring and right next to the action. And that's what makes it so entertaining. You hear the moves, you're right by the crowd, you're chanting the wrestlers' names, or even yelling at the refs. I mean, we do that during baseball, let alone doing it during a wrestling show. But and there was even ones that weren't televised as well. I believe a lot of these, they're building their way towards what their pay-per-view event is called Best in the World. And this Collinsville taping was held at the Convention Center in Collinsville, Illinois. They usually also hold one in Carbondale, but I do not believe they were holding one this year there. But overall, I believe it was an outstanding match outstanding event with outstanding matches from a promotion that I recommend people check out. It's on ABC Saturday from 11:30 to 12:30 weekly, and it's also on a new channel, Destination America. You can check your local providers and see if you get that channel. And Nick, I take it back to you.
All right. Well, that's all the time we're going to have for today. We did talk a little Cardinals. You can catch tonight's game on Fox Sports Midwest and KMOX as always. Michael Waka, 8-1, takes on Jorge De La Rosa, 2-2 tonight at 7:40. And that's going to be it for Jeremy Karp. I'm Nick Yale. You can check out Arch City Sports on Facebook. Be sure to spot them a like and follow at Arch City Sports on Twitter. You can also follow Jeremy Karp at JCarpSportsFan1 on Twitter and myself at Nick Yale. If you'd like to advertise with Arch City Sports on either this podcast or online at archcitysports.com, shoot an email to micklight, MICKLITE @gmail.com.